Hello and welcome to BBC London. Coming up on tonight's programme. Shot dead by police after being caught with a crossbow. Now it's emerged a man killed by officers was a convicted stalker. The 30-year-old was banned from entering this road after being issued with a restraining order. I'm live in Surrey Quays with the latest. Also ahead this Wednesday.
Living on the estate is hell. That's the only word that I can use is hell.
Fighting for better living conditions on their estate, the residents taking their protest directly to the council. Plus, 5 months after ULEZ was expanded to outer London, we gauged the scheme's success to scrap the most polluting cars. And finishing his fundraising challenge, the 24-year-old who's completed 5K every day for a year, raising money for the hospice that cared for his dad. Good evening to you. First tonight, it's emerged that a man shot dead by police yesterday after breaking into a home in Southwark, armed with multiple weapons, including a crossbow, was a convicted stalker. Firearms officers were called to a residential street in Surrey Quays after the 30-year-old forced his way into the property. Today it was revealed he'd been given a suspended jail sentence last year and issued with a restraining order. Well, we can get more from our reporter Frankie McCamley, who's been following developments and joins us now. Frankie.
Well, good evening, Riz. As you can just about see behind me, there is still a small police presence here. There are still a number of vehicles, but throughout the day there's been a very heavy police presence. Forensics have been combing the scene, trying to work out exactly what happened here in the early hours of yesterday morning. Now, what we know is at around 5 o'clock yesterday morning, a man named Bryce Hodgson entered a property just behind me. He was soon after shot dead by police. Now, this is Bywater Place, just in Surrey Quays, a residential area, as you can see, quite a quiet one at the moment. And earlier I spoke to a resident who heard some of the commotion that happened in the very early hours.
I was sleeping and then I woke up to the noise, but I couldn't, because as I said, I'm from Brazil, so when we think about England, we don't think it's a dangerous place, especially London, big city, so I just thought maybe nothing, and then I went back to sleep. And then when my girlfriend was on her way to work, she messaged me, oh, there's a lot of police here. Then I came down to see and I was very scared.
Well, what we now also know, according to court documents, is Hodgson was actually banned from this road for 5 years. He was banned in July last year under a restraining order after admitting to stalking. Now, what we understand happened in that case was in early last year, he entered a woman's room without consent and tried to force her way in. Now, last night, when police officers arrived at the scene, they arrived to reports that Hodgson was branding a number of weapons. When they arrived, the Metropolitan Police has said that they tried to talk him down, they tried to get to him to surrender, but when that didn't happen, they shot him. Now, there were a number of weapons that have been recovered at the scene since, including crossbows, a knife and a sword. Now, this case, like any other, when there is a police fatality, has been referred to the police watchdog, and they are currently looking into what happened. Riz.
With the latest there from Surrey Quays, Frankie, thank you. Mould, damp, substandard housing and antisocial behaviour. Sadly, it's an all too familiar story for thousands of Londoners, and one we've reported on many times before on this programme. Well, residents, many housed in temporary accommodation on an estate in Lewisham, say their complaints about poor living conditions and violence are falling on deaf ears, and they've had enough. So today they took their complaint directly to the council. Guy Lynn reports.
What do we want? What do we want?
Meet some of the 1,000 or so residents of Milford Towers, who, like Kelly, are protesting that the conditions where they live are intolerable.
It's dangerous, it's not warm, it's not friendly, and no one wants to live there.
Kelly's been living on the top floor for several years and is sick of the lifts never working. It used to mean that her disabled husband couldn't get out to hospital appointments. Sadly, he recently passed away.
To have his dialysis, he had to go out, but he was missing the dialysis appointments because of the issues with the lifts. He couldn't get down the stairs, he couldn't manage the stairs. Living on the estate is hell. That's the only word that I can use. No one would know how it is here unless you live here.
Milford Towers houses those in great need with temporary accommodation, but residents here call it a prison, with appalling hygiene, rubbish and blight everywhere, and terrible conditions inside the flats too.
The mould down there in the bathroom and up here on the roof and in here, in the toilet, in the bathroom here, and up here is leaking water.
If the mould wasn't bad enough, this resident, who was too scared to show her face, says many here face violence on an estate riddled by crime. She was recently attacked by a stranger as she was walking.
He just fly kicked me and attacked me for no apparent reason. I don't know who he is. I wouldn't be able to recognise him even if he was to put him in front of me. And since then, I've found it hard to leave the property on my own. It's not safe at all. My 20-year-old daughter, she doesn't leave the property unless she's going to work. She only goes to work and come back.
Those here say the terrible conditions everywhere attract criminals and antisocial behaviour. Lewisham Council told us standards had fallen below what they expect and were working closely with residents. They've invested £14 million, they say, to support this work. Housing Association Notting Hill Genesis said they weren't responsible for overall conditions, just repairs in flats. And they say they've put in place a dedicated service.
What do we want? When do we want it?
And those who live on the estate say enough is enough. Guy Lynn, BBC London.
Let's take a brief look now at some of the day's other stories. The family of a woman who died when a bus collided with pedestrians outside Victoria Station on Monday have described her as a very unique lady who they are so very proud of. 56-year-old Catherine Finnegan, who was originally from Ireland, died at the scene. The Met says their investigation continues and are appealing for witnesses. Health bosses say there have been 46 cases of measles in London in the latest outbreak of the disease, most of them in young children. Next week, we'll see the launch of a new campaign to chase up people who have not yet had their MMR jabs, with fears that low vaccination rates in the capital could lead to a major outbreak. And 3 men have been arrested after cocaine with a street value of £10 million was found in the linings of banana boxes shipped from the Dominican Republic. The drugs were found by Border Force officers in Portsmouth. 2 shipments were traced to an address in Acton in West London. Next, to the ban on owning XL bully dogs, which comes into force in England tomorrow following a number of fatal attacks. As we've been hearing, today was the last day for owners of the breed to make sure their dog is registered for an exemption certificate. From tomorrow, unregistered prohibited dogs can be seized by police and owners face a criminal record and an unlimited fine. Layla Hayes has more.
Good boy.
Muzzled up and on a lead in public.
Good boy.
Sophie Coulthard says her XL bully is a danger to no one. But the new rules mean they can only leave the house like this.
When you go from having a dog who has never been aggressive to another dog or human, and who was generally very placid and playful, and facing having to muzzle that dog when even my vet said he does not need a muzzle. It's difficult to come to terms with, but we did the training, we've accepted it, and to be fair to him, he's adapted very well to the muzzle. I think it's more the stigma that I feel when I'm walking him now, because I almost feel like I've been criminalised for the dog that I chose.
XL bullies have now been added to the list of dogs banned under the Dangerous Dogs Act, and the rules are getting even tighter. From tomorrow, anyone owning an XL bully dog will need a certificate of exemption. They will also need to have insurance and neuter their dog. Owning an unregistered dog will be a criminal offence.
Oh my goodness.
The government says the new rules will protect the public from dog attacks like this one in a London park. But those who've been attacked say tighter regulation is needed.
I had scratches and bites on my legs. My lip was actually slit and torn, like from here all the way down. There needs to be more rules about who can own a dog. I think that would be a very good idea. Not only is an untrained dog at risk to other people, it's actually caused a lot of distress for the dog itself as well.
But Sophie says targeting specific breeds won't work.
We can keep adding dogs to the Dangerous Dogs Act and adding breeds to this list, but ultimately the people who are getting dogs for the wrong reasons will just move on to another breed. And there are bigger breeds, there are more powerful breeds, and I think we'll just be having the same conversation in a few years' time.
Sophie is now challenging the ban in the courts and says XL bullies are being singled out. But others, including the government, say the dogs are dangerous and a ban is long overdue. Layla Hayes, BBC London.
The significant expansion of the ultra-low emission zone last year has been controversial. It came into force across all London boroughs at the end of August, but it was only a few weeks before that the ULEZ Scrappage scheme was extended to all Londoners. 5 months on, the Mayor's announced more money for the scheme, and it comes as more details have been published on what has happened with it so far. Our Transport and Environment correspondent Tom Edwards joins me. Hi, Tom. What do these figures show then?
Yeah, Groundhog Day, isn't it, a bit? Yeah, these are the headlines. If we have a look now, total allocated, awarded by Transport for London, if we have a look at the figures now on your screen, is £158 million. That's out of a pot of 160 million. Now the Mayor has decided to put in another 50 million to try and get more people to come and scrap non-compliant vehicles. But if you drill down into the details, this is the really interesting bit. The car applications received nearly 65,000 and accepted for this £2,000 scrappage over 31,000. So that's about a 50% success rate. If we have a look now at the van applications, they received over 50,000 applications, as you can see there, 50,323, and those that were accepted, 15,039. That's only about 30%
so less
success
than a
rate.
third.
Yeah, not as high success rate. As we've reported before, that's because the criteria is actually quite strict. You need things like valid insurance, valid MOT. Now, this is what TfL had to say about what some would say are quite high rejection rates.
What we see with the scrappage scheme is that the total number of applications doesn't necessarily reflect the number of people in the system. It's the fact that people might apply, and if they've got something missing in their application, we'll reply to them and explain what they need to do or add in order to get a successful application. So you might see some multiples in there, as well as the applications that are still in the system. So it's not quite as simple as if it's not been accepted, it's been rejected, it may well still be in that process.
Do you think there will be a lot of disappointed motorists then in London with regards to the scrappage scheme so far?
Well, I think what we can see with regards to the scheme so far is that it's been really popular with Londoners and really successful.
So a sense there of double counting because it's applications, not people.
Yeah.
In terms of how much the ULEZ is bringing in financially, what do we know about that?
Well, we haven't got an up-to-date figure. The last data we've got is from September, when there was 95% of moving vehicles that were compliant. If you have a look at the details then for the finances of the ULEZ, then, as you'll be able to see on your screen now, 57,200 a day were paying the ULEZ charge, £12.50, bringing in, we estimate, £23 million a day. And for the fines, they were bringing in between 1.2 and 2.4 million pounds a day. TfL says the most recent data, that's going to be available in the next few weeks, so we'll find out a lot more then.
And of course, you and I both know all too well that there is a mayoral election coming up. What are people saying across the political spectrum?
Well, the Labour Mayor Sadiq Khan's team, they introduced it. They say the scrappage scheme is Going well, no surprise there. The Conservative candidate who will scrap the ULEZ extension says, and I quote, "The Mayor continues to pursue his relentless attack on motorists. His scrappage scheme is a joke." The Lib Dems, they say those who scrap their vehicles before the rules changed to include all Londoners, because there was a sense that was rushed, they should get retrospective scrappage. And the Greens candidate, they welcome the scrappage scheme and the expansion, but the scheme needs to be clear and rapid. So really clear dividing lines there, even on the ULEZ scrappage scheme.
OK, Tom, appreciate that. Thanks very much. Still to come this Wednesday evening. Finishing his fundraising challenge, the 24-year-old who's run 5K every day for 12 months to raise money for the hospice that cared for his dad. And as dry January comes to an end, we chat to the BBC journalist just beginning her journey, vowing to give up alcohol for a whole year. Now, it's 4 years since the UK left the EU, and the chair of the City of London Corporation has told us London's financial sector has survived Brexit and is moving forward. He says there have been job losses, but new jobs are now being created in new sectors. It comes after recent research commissioned by City Hall suggested the capital's economy was £30 billion smaller than if Brexit had not happened. Here's our political reporter, Susanna Mendonça.
It was a nice life, you know, it's a beach town. It was
happy times in the country that Alex and his family used to call home. But their dream of staying in Sweden was dashed when Britain formally left the European Union 4 years ago, as their application to remain there was rejected and they almost ended up being deported.
I think Brexit really threw a massive spanner in the works and caused a lot of headaches for a lot of Brits. And I think also the other EU countries, or some in particular, like Sweden, really interpreted rules quite harshly and made life very difficult for a lot of Brits that were living there.
Left scarred by the experience, he and his family moved back to London and now live in Richmond. It's a borough that was even more pro-European than the capital as a whole was back in 2016, when almost 60% of Londoners voted to remain in the EU, while the country chose to leave.
And recent polling suggests that since then, Londoners haven't exactly warmed to the idea of having left the European Union. Around 60% of those questioned said that they thought that Brexit had failed and that we should rejoin parts of the EU.
But opinions on Brexit continue, as ever, to be divided.
I don't think it's been great for Londoners, no. I think it shot everything up. I think the cost of living is astronomical now, and it's a struggle for all of us.
In time, I think people will see that it is a very good thing, and I think it's a case of lots of things have still got to roll out.
Industries like the hospitality sector in London have struggled to fill posts since Brexit, but some say other big issues affecting the capital may also have played a part.
Well, when you talk about things like specific labour shortages in hospitality, that particular issue, that does seem to be very directly related to Brexit. But it is just incredibly difficult to work out exactly what's down to Brexit and what's down to COVID and the legacy of that, and the cost of living crisis and the war in Ukraine.
Research commissioned by the Mayor of London, who's long been opposed to the UK's withdrawal from the EU, says that Brexit has cost London's economy £30 billion so far, and there are almost 300,000 fewer jobs in the capital than there would have been if Brexit had never happened. But fears that London's status as a world financial centre would crumble after leaving the European Union haven't rung true, according to City Watchers.
For the jobs we lost as a result of Brexit, we've seen new jobs coming from the EU, where firms have wanted to start up offices in the square mile. So actually, I would say we've all been wrong. I wouldn't have voted for Brexit. I'm a Remainer, but I think actually we've survived and we're now moving forward.
A spokesperson for the government said it was making the most of Brexit freedoms to grow the economy. Susanna Mendonça, BBC London.
Now, as you may have been hearing, for those taking part in Dry January, it's almost done. So how would you feel if it was for a whole year? That's what one of my colleagues here at BBC London has decided to do, and she's not alone. 25-year-old journalist Jess Warren joins me now to tell us more. OK, so let's start with, what was the motivation for this?
Do you know, I think I was just curious. I'd spent the last 6 months or so thinking a little bit more about why I was drinking, and I'd made some friends that were sober. They didn't drink at all, and for me, that started to model what that could look like, what that kind of lifestyle is. You know, they were still going to the pub, they were still going out clubbing, and they were some of the most fun people I know. So seeing that just made me a bit more reflective about what I could do without alcohol.
So why a year?
Do you know, I thought a month is fine. I do that quite often at the start of the year. What would happen if I did it for 12 months? What benefits will I see? Will there be any bigger changes in my life? Maybe health, maybe something like that?
And the fact that your social circle had people that didn't drink anyway, I guess for some people, you know, they might feel the pressure.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it's easier for me because some of the people that I know are sober, some aren't. I doubt that I'm going to have a drink pushed into my hand or someone kind of pressuring me to drink in that way. The reaction was really good when I said that I was going to try it out. But for others, yeah, I could see it would be a really big challenge because it's built into our culture in that way. And maybe it's generational as well. It's, you know, people might find their social group, everyone drinks, or they wouldn't be afraid to have a few bottles of wine on a dinner party, that kind of thing. So I'll be really curious to see how I find this compared to other people. I'm going to chat to some people and hopefully throughout the year find out a bit more about other people's experience.
And I know that you're documenting it as well. You did say to me though that summer might be a little challenging.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we drink more in the summer, we go to festivals, we have barbecues, we have parties, birthdays. I've got all of that lined up. How do I cope? I'm not sure yet.
Well, okay, you have done January though. How are you feeling so far?
So far, really good, really good. I feel like I have more energy, and in the mornings where I might have had a drink the night before, I'm waking up earlier, I'm feeling a bit better, a bit fresher. I'd be curious to see what happens in a few months. Is it going to be even better?
Okay, well, BBC London will be following your journey, especially on radio and online. So thank you very much indeed, for telling us about it. I will be asking you regularly in the office how it's going. Jess Warren, thank you so much. And Jess is documenting her experience. In fact, there's already a piece that she has written on our website, which is getting a lot of interest. Just head to bbc.co.uk/London. You can see the address on your screen. Good luck to her. Now, talking of year-long challenges, this next one is about taking on 5K every day for a year. That's what 24-year-old Alfie Glimcher has just completed today for a very personal reason. It's in memory of his dad, who was a former professional football player, and to raise money for the East London hospice that cared for him. Chris Legg.
Alfie Glimcher finally crossing the finish line at St Joseph's Hospice in Hackney this afternoon.
I could not believe when I turned the corner and see all these people clapping for me. Like, it's just amazing, and I just have no words to describe how thankful I am for everyone's support. It's honestly so good. It feels so good to finally finish, and yeah, it's amazing to raise money for this amazing hospice.
Alfie's dad, Paul Glimcher, was a professional footballer with Charlton in the 1990s and also played for Leyton Orient and Brighton. Alfie was close to his dad and was left distraught in 2021 when he died of pancreatic cancer aged just 46. In his memory, Alfie set out to run or walk 5K every day for a year, a challenge he completed today.
I thought there was days where he was going to say, "Oh, Nan, I just can't," especially in that cold weather in the winter. But no, I'm sorry, I'm going to get it. He did it. He did it. And we can't be prouder. Can't be prouder because what an achievement.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Alfie was also raising money for St Joseph's, who cared for his dad in his final days.
This £3,000 will be put to use immediately in terms of making sure that our services are maintaining the high standards that they should do. So without the support of people like Alfie and the people who give regularly to us, we wouldn't be able to do what we've been doing here for such a long time.
What do you make of what Alfie's achieved?
Brilliant, fantastic. He's done really well for his dad.
It's been unbelievable what he's done. To do 5K every day is a massive achievement, and to raise the money for such a fantastic place like this.
At Charlton, they love a player who comes through the academy and plays for the first team. I know it was before you were born, but
What have you heard of his time at the club?
Loads of people always come up to me and say how much of a player he was and how much he, you know, how much everyone really valued him and saw him as a good person as well as a good football player as well. Everyone loved him. He was that person that just lit up the room, and yeah, I hope he's proud of me for doing this.
Well done, Alfie. And that was Chris Legg reporting there. Right, let's get a check on the weather as we look ahead to February tomorrow. And I think, as we were talking about earlier with dry January, I'm sure some people are looking forward to February.
I'm sure some people are. A friend of mine messaged me, Riz, this week and said, can I put all the winter jumpers away? Has spring arrived because it's been so mild? I said to her, absolutely not. Far too early. It may be that something colder returns later in February.
Okay.
But not in the short term, as I'll show you in a moment. And today, well, it's been a pretty cloudy affair, rather mild out there for the most part. We've seen a little bit of sunshine peeking through. That was how it looked for a weather watcher in Battersea earlier on. This is the satellite picture, and look at this big hook of cloud. Now, that's a really powerful storm that's passed to the north of the UK. It's brought some very gusty winds in the north of Scotland, but we really haven't felt much of the effects of that. All we will get is this little band of rain pushing its way southwards as we head through the night. Skies should be clear, though, by the time you're up and about tomorrow morning. Some early sunshine to be had, but it will be quite a chilly start. Those are the temperatures as we start the day, 3, 4 or 5 degrees, but as promised, quite a lot of sunshine through tomorrow. It may be that we see a bit of high clouds streaming across the sky, turning that sunshine hazy. You can't really see that high cloud here on the map, but it may not be completely clear blue skies, but still a nice looking day. Slightly chillier than it has been, 7, 8 or 9 degrees, but that is still not bad at all for the first day of February. It's going to turn a little bit chilly at first tomorrow evening with clear skies, but we'll see things clouding over from the west. We get into a feed of westerly winds through Thursday night and into Friday, bringing some very mild air, but also bringing quite a lot of clouds. So Friday, yes, it is a cloudier day. That cloud may produce the odd spot of rain or drizzle at times. It's going to be quite windy on Friday. Those westerly winds blowing right across London and the home counties. But look at the temperatures, 12, 13, 14. I wouldn't be at all surprised if we got to 15 degrees, given just a little bit of sunshine. Very similar on Saturday. A lot of cloud around. That cloud will break from time to time to give a little bit of sunshine. It's still going to be breezy and it's still going to be very mild, 12, 13 or 14 degrees. So let's look further ahead. I mentioned that there's not much cold weather on the horizon as we look through Sunday and into next week. Those temperatures holding up at 13 or 14 degrees. The nights should mostly be quite mild as well because we'll be keeping quite a lot of cloud in the mix. I think if you are looking for something colder, well, there is a chance of that as we get towards the middle part of February, but that is still a long way off. So tomorrow, nice looking day with some sunshine, cloudy but mild as we head towards the weekend. That's all from me. Riz.
Ben, thank you. The changing weather keeping you busy. And that is it for now. Thank you so much for joining us. You can, of course, see more on our website. Everything from all you need to know about the current train strikes and how they're affecting services, to finding out what Adele has described as a bit random but fabulous. Whatever you're up to, have a fabulous evening. Bye-bye.